anyone, leaders, students, who's read this book before? Read half of it? Okay, if you're not a reader like I am, get the audiobook. It's amazing because he reads it and you hear the emotion in his voice. And I read this book the first year I came in and was the youth pastor here. I read this book and I was blown away by it. I had Pastor Joshua create all of these DVDs and discs that I wanted to distribute out to the leaders, and I wanted to read this book together because emotionally it connected so much with me. Because I feel like at times I end up with this kind of shallow, like, all right, I'm going to church, I work for a church, so like when I go and work for God, they just pay me money, and I'm just kind of going through the motions. And it really sucked. Let me just put it that way. It was awful. Like it really hindered how I felt about the Lord and my relationship with Him. And I read this book and I was like, oh my gosh, like, this is huge. I'm like, everybody needs to read this. And this is one of those books that I think there was 1 million of these copies that were sold. It did really well. It was on the bestsellers list because of the intimacy that this book brings into the relationship that I want you guys to have. I don't want us to just be a youth group where we come in, we read something out of the Bible here, and then we play a couple of fun games, and I get you all jacked up on cookies and soda and send you home, and mom and dad can, heckle me all week because you're all amped up. But I want us to have this intimate relationship that really pushes us forward. And I was I'm always trying to think of how did I get to a place in my faith where I actually wanted to grow? When I didn't just show up because I was told to show up. Because I think that if you guys can get to that place, where you come to youth group, where you go to church because you want to hear from God. You don't want to hear from me. You don't want to hear from Pastor Joshua or any other teachers. You want to hear from the Word. And you want to hear what God is doing in the community, in our hearts, in our church. And then growing from that. I think that if you can get there, if you can connect, if you can make that bridge, that jump, you'll fuel your own faith. And maybe your faith isn't there yet. Maybe you just don't care. Maybe you're still trying to figure out if God is actually real. Maybe you're a Christian and you have crazy doubts. Good. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad that you have doubts. Because the doubts in a Christian mind show that a Christian is actually thinking. God doesn't want us to be mindless drones and to not pay attention and not ask questions. If God is the God of this Bible, Old Testament, New, if He is who He says He is, it doesn't matter where we look, we should be able to find Him. And if He isn't, then there's no point in worshiping Him. So let's take that journey together, all right? I want to pray, but tonight I'm going to ask Alyssa to come up here and pray. Come on up, Alyssa. Oh, snap.
Jesus loves you.
Okay. Dear God, thank you for tonight and for everybody who's able to make it here and hear about what Levi has to say. Guide his words that he will only speak what you want us to hear, and help us all to take away something really important tonight. Amen.
What's that? Raise the mic. It's like, I'm just going to take this off and use my hands that God has given me. So like I said, I really want you guys to develop this intimate understanding of who God is. So if you haven't picked up, thank you. If you haven't picked up the book, pick it up. I'm going to start tonight with a quote from R.C. Sproul that's in the very first section of this book. R.C. Sproul said that men are never duly touched and impressed with conviction of their insignificance until they have contrasted themselves with the majesty of God. How many of you guys have grown up in the church? Raise your hand. Just been part of the church all your life. And how many of you guys haven't grown up in church? It's new to you. It's new to me. I was raised in a secular family, violent family. You guys know the story, all that stuff, right? I was raised in that kind of family. So God is something new to me. When God came to me in my life when I was 16, 17 years old, and I got saved in that pizza restaurant in 1999. How many of you guys were born? Okay. You weren't alive yet. I know. Now I feel really old. When God came to me, this was all new to me. And I had this deep relationship with Him. I had this experience with God that I could not shake. But for us to really understand and bridge that gap from just knowledge on a screen, just knowledge in a book, we have to have an emotional connection to Him. And to really understand that, we need to know who God is. Who is God? He's this supreme creature in the sky who just tells us what to do and bosses us around? Is that the view that you have of God? I'm going to read a section out of this book where Francis Chan talks about it. Says, who is God? A lot of people they say whatever they want or whatever they want you to believe about God, and that's fine so long as they are sincere, so long you are sincere. But that is comparable to describing your friend in one instance as a 300-pound sumo wrestler and another as a 5'2", 90-pound gymnast. No matter how sincere you are in your explanation, both descriptions of your friend simply can't be true. So it's the same thing with God. We go around, and I know we've talked about this before, we go around and we ask people, who's God to you? Who's Jesus to you? What does Jesus mean to you? It doesn't matter what Jesus means to us. It matters who he is and who God is. When we talk about God as being holy. He's this holy creator that is separate from his creation. He created you and knit you together intimately. In Genesis, it talks about how he formed us, right? You think about the Genesis account, how everything was created. God spoke things into being. Let there be light. Let there be land. Let there be water. Let there be an expanse. But when it came to man, it said that we were knit together in Psalm 139. That God molded and shaped us out of the dirt. And the word implies that there's intimacy and that there's actual work happening. So maybe you're somebody who struggles with your identity. Maybe you just want to be like everybody else and you wonder why God didn't give you the body you wanted, or he hasn't done this for you, he hasn't done that. God has put his fingerprint on your life and created you in his image and molded you together. And it's evident in your gifts and in who you are. So God is holy. God is also eternal. He's outside of anything we know. There was never a beginning. There was never an end. Yet he chose you specifically to be born. You guys see that video that I think I showed in here, the miracle of your existence, of you being alive, like the odds of you actually being born. It's like somebody, the entire city of San Diego rolling a trillion-sided dice, the entire population, the 2 million people that live there, everybody rolling the same number. That's the odds of you actually existing, sitting in your chair right now. So there's purpose in your life. There's purpose in what God is doing. Maybe you're just struggling and you feel like everything's purposeless. You know, there are people that are struggling with things right now that they're just trudging through it. My wife is trying to figure out what's wrong with her. We have family members that are really sick, and we can stand there and we can question God and ask him why he's doing what he's doing, but he's writing out his plan in our life. But until we bridge that gap, until we understand that, how big he is and how small we are, and the fact that he chose you, we're not going to bridge that gap between knowledge and her. I have another video here I want to show you real quick. It's a 7-minute video, so just sit through it, and we'll wrap this little talk up, and we'll break up into our small groups. Okay? Caleb, will you go ahead and grab the light? Shad's putting up the video right now.
Yeah. But we are here tonight to worship. This is an amazing thought. A God who is indescribable. You say, well, how do you know that? All you have to do is walk outside on a dark night and look up into the sky, and you will know when you look up that this God we're worshiping tonight is beyond our wildest dream. The scripture says, by the word of the Lord the heavens were made, the starry host by the breath of his mouth. We live in a little subdivision in the universe called the Milky Way Galaxy. In case you didn't know, that's where you live. Some of you are thinking you live in Shady Grove. No, you're living in the Milky Way Galaxy. That's your subdivision in the universe, a very big universe that we have to use something called a light year to get around in. You say, well, what's a light year? Well, that's how fast light travels in 1 year. And we know it's flying 186,000 miles a second. So if light goes 186,000 miles a second for a whole year, it goes 5.88 trillion miles in a year. And that's the measurement, or one of the main measurements we use to get around in the universe that God has created. That's how big it is. The foot, not going to help you in God's universe. The yard, of no value to you whatsoever in God's universe. The mile, insignificant. The kilometer, not going to help you getting around in God's universe. We have to use a ruler that is 5.88 trillion miles long to measure things in God's universe. And our home subdivision, the Milky Way Galaxy, just came into being. It consists of billions of stars. Just our subdivision, the Milky Way Galaxy. Not hundreds, not millions, not hundreds of millions. Billions of stars in our home subdivision, the Milky Way galaxy, and scientists say that there are hundreds of billions of other subdivisions and galaxies in the known universe. This shot is where we live. It's a little snapshot of the Milky Way galaxy. If you zoom into this star-forming region, see something pretty amazing. This particular shot is a close-up of a star-forming region in our subdivision taken by a friend of ours named Dr. David Block, who's an astronomer down at Wits University in Johannesburg, South Africa. And we were down there a few months ago, and he was telling us that if we were to count the billions of stars in the Milky Way galaxy, 1 star per second. So if we just started with any one of these, I don't know which one you want to pick. Let's just start with this one right here. And because I can reach it. And we start 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That looks like 1, but I'm close enough to see it's 2 that are close together. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Let's go back over here. 12. You're like, oh, please don't count them all. If we counted all the stars in our subdivision, 1 per second, it would take 2,500 years just to count the stars in the Milky Way galaxy. And God says about himself, you want to know how the universe is telling us that God is big? Through the prophet Isaiah, he says, to whom will you compare me? And who is my equal, says the Holy One. Lift your eyes to the heavens. Who created all of these? And then he answers for himself. The one who leads forth the starry host one by one and calls them each by name. Because of his mighty strength and great power, not one of them is missing. If you want to get a glimpse of it, here's a composite shot of our subdivision, the Milky Way galaxy. It's taken by combining hundreds of thousands of photographs. Obviously, we haven't managed to get outside of the Milky Way galaxy to take a picture of it, but NASA folks are pretty sure that's what it looks like. It has a barred nucleus. It's a barred spiral galaxy. And you're like, wow, that's pretty cool. Yeah, it's 100,000 light years across. So if you want to go visit your neighbors on the other side of the subdivision, you just have to go 186,000 miles a second for 100,000 years, and boom, you're at their house. In our little neighborhood home called the Milky Way galaxy, you say, well, where are we? I'm looking for us on there. You know, we got to be right in the center, obviously. I'm sure we're right there in that middle. No, believe it or not, we're not even in the center of our own subdivision, okay? So affirming again tonight, it's not about you and it's not about me. We don't even live in the center of our own subdivision, and you don't want to live in the center of the subdivision because it's scary in the center of the subdivision. You say, well, where do we live? Well, we live way out between a couple of the spiral arms. You don't want to live in there either because that's dangerous territory inside the bands. We live in that little clear zone between a couple of the bands, about 2/3 of the way out. We're living somewhere about there. And you're like, well, I don't see me. No. Because we couldn't put a mark on the diagram that you could see that would be the right relative size to our solar system. You know, that's our little cul-de-sac in the subdivision, that we couldn't even put our solar system on here in relative size to the Milky Way galaxy for you to see. It's that small inside the Milky Way galaxy. Scientists say our solar system is the size of a quarter, and the Milky Way galaxy is the size of the North American continent. So our whole solar system is a quarter in the size of an area as big as the North American continent. We're not that consequential in our own subdivision called the Milky Way galaxy. And somewhere in there is a star, one of these billions of stars. It's not the biggest, the baddest, the brightest. It's just one of the stars of the billions of stars. We call it the sun, and around it tonight are orbiting these balls, one of which is called Earth. It's our home. That's you and me. No, I'm not trying to make you feel small. I'm trying to help you see that you are small. But it's significant. significant, insignificant.
Got a couple of quick notes. Looks like there's about a minute left, but it doesn't really explain this here. I don't know if you guys have seen this before or not, but this microphone on. This right here is a band of light, and I think it's some ridiculous distance, like 100 trillion light years away. I mean, it's just immensely far away. And that little object right there is the Earth. And he says it's a mote of dust suspended in a sunbeam. And he talks about how every human being in all of humanity since the creation and inception of the world has lived and died on that speck of dust suspended in that sunbeam. Go ahead and hit play. 1 minute left here.
Yes. Because as tiny as we are known and prized by majesty, who sent for us and loves us and knows us, even though we are teeny tiny little bitty people on a little bitty speck floating through the vast cosmos that he has made. Just like he could name every star as he called them into being and put them in their places. He could start in this building tonight all the way up in the top with you, right there. And he could call you by your name. And he could move to you and call you by your name and you by your name. And the great creator of all the heavens and the earth could move through this auditorium and call every single person in this building by name tonight. He knows us and is aware of us and loves us and has come to invite us into a relationship with him that will never ever end.
So this video is 38 minutes long. I hope that you guys understand, just get the idea. I need you to read that first chapter. So read that first chapter of that book this week. And then after that, I want you to read the second one, because Kristen's going to unpack that next week after we play Frisbee golf. But understand that there is this God who created all this stuff to reflect back to humanity, saying, I love you and I'm here, to point us back to him. And we're not significant and we're not important, but he chose to redeem us. He chose to redeem you. It was his decision to do that, and that's huge when you think about all the other things he could be doing. We have a YouTube channel set up for Shield Youth Groups. If you have your cell phones, pull out your cell phones real quick. Pull out your cell phones, go to YouTube. All of our videos for this series, there's going to be a bunch of them, are on there on a playlist, and I want you to watch them. Okay, just do it chapter by chapter as you're reading them, okay? Go to YouTube, you're going to look up Shield Youth Group, and you should see our flag logo there. Hit subscribe and then turn on that notification button as well, so that you guys get notified when those new videos are uploaded. What's that?
Is it the one with 20 subscribers?
Maybe. So Chad's gonna help you out here. Look up Shield Youth Group, and then it's us right here. Boom. Go all the way to the right, hit subscribe, and then turn on your notifications.
And hit the bell.
Yep, hit that bell and it'll turn on, alright? So all the videos will be there. Read that first chapter. You guys, we're going to break up into small groups here. Got some small group questions for you. I want you to unpack, I want you to think about, and then we will go from there. So, let's do it. Go ahead and get in your groups. Dave, you got groups for us?
I do.
Go Davey!
Alright, guys. So I took all your guys' cards and I did the best I could do to make